Sounds of Stadia podcast for another great episode number 125, where you join myself, Chris, your host for the show, alongside the man of many pixels, Mr. Richie.
You know what's quite refreshing, seeing you fumble the intro and have to start again?
I don't know what you're talking about, Richie. This wasn't my third or fourth take of the intro at all. Of the Sounds of Stadia podcast, your weekly show where we bring you all of the gaming and Stadia news rounded up into a lovely hour and a half episode. Available right here on youtube.com/Hades Cloud Games, or up there in the digital clouds on your podcast preference of choice. We've got a great show lined up where we will be talking about the much rumoured Resident Evil 4, new Assassin's Creed content, some new games rated for Stadia, a great developer blowout showing you that the future is indeed being worked on behind the scenes, a couple of NFT talk that we'll spend barely a second on, and much, much more. But before we delve into all that, thank you to all of our viewers and listeners out there, the hundreds of you who tune in across all platforms every single week. We love you all, and we appreciate you stopping by to watch and or listen. Richie, this past week, we dove in, or we took off, I guess, into space, and we played Bungie's Destiny 2, in honour of them being bought, I guess, by Sony, and also the Witch King DLC that is on the horizon. It's mere days away at this point. What did you think jumping back in it? We've not played Destiny on the channel before, or for a while.
Yeah, it's one of them weird ones where, despite it being a day one release for Stadia, that we've never actually done content on it. We've planned to several times, but we never got round to it. I mean, Destiny, it's a great game. There's no denying that. But I think one of the problems it has is it's not very approachable for new players. We had a blast, but we were just having a good time, talking, and just playing through. But I was like, I couldn't tell you anything about the story we played through at all.
Yeah, it's a testament to how fun the game is and how the shooting gameplay is revered as one of the best shooters in existence of all time, because it's so fun regardless of what's happening around you. Just the whole reload, shoot, use your special, fire a grenade, jump over there, shoot, rinse and repeat. It's that good that it kept us enamoured for 2.5 hours. And you know what? Since we put the controllers down on Thursday night, I've still had like a little bit of an itch to jump back in and just kill some time, because I'm not playing anything at the moment. I'm not committed to anything until Horizon Forbidden West comes out. So I've got almost like a week of just chipping away at FIFA, chipping away at a little bit of Pokemon. But you know when you don't feel like you're committed to anything.
Yeah.
It's a good place to be in. I've just started 2 weeks holiday as well, so I've got plenty of time to kill and jump in and enjoy stuff. But yes, the Witch King is on the horizon. We'll no doubt probably be checking some more Destiny 2 out in the future. So if you enjoyed our live stream this past Thursday, do join us this Thursday where we'll be playing another game on Google Stadia. And if you're out there, drop your recommendations into our Discord chat. We've got a very vibrant chat group of lovely, like-minded people out there all day, every day, talking about things from Stadia, cloud gaming, to just being parents and generally not having any time as an adult. It's a big ongoing thing, and we appreciate everyone in our Discord, just like we appreciate everyone out there who clicks like on the video, subscribe to the channel, and hits that bell so they're kept in the loop with all of the Stadia content we bring you here at Hades Cloud Games, because we do a lot, Richie. We've got first looks, live streams, side quests, let's play series, all of it. And it's only made possible by you people viewing along out there, especially our members. If you want to support myself, Richie, and Tom a little bit further, you can click join on the link below. For as little as 99p, you get early access to some of our shows. You get exclusive stickers and badges to use in the chat and next to your name over on YouTube. But more importantly, you get Richie's undevoted love, as we've said many times before. I mean, at the time of listening to this, it will be Valentine's Day, so happy Valentine's Day to all of you lovely people out there. Hope you have a pleasant time and eat some chocolates and Hallmark cards and everything else that Valentine's Day has become in 2022.
Do all the things you need to do so your wife doesn't get shout at you.
That too. It's a very important rule. Of course, as it is the season of love, let's show some love to the video games out there, Richie. We've got a great show, but we can't do that until you introduce us to
the super sexy special Stadia story segment, aka the news.
We love the news. We've been doing this little bit for 125 episodes now, and it won't get old. It'll stay. But as I said, not much strong Stadia-centric news. There's a couple of bits and pieces, but a lot of it's rumour and hearsay this week. We are again still in February. It's the quiet season. But coming out swinging, story number one for the week. We have a standalone Assassin's Creed game to be rumoured. I've dubbed it as Assassin's Creed Basim. Because anyone who's played Valhalla will know who the character Basim is. Apparently, a smaller standalone Assassin's Creed game focused on stealth gameplay will launch later this year or in early 2023 and feature the popular character Basim. That's according to a report from Bloomberg, which cites the source as its close in development and nearing its end. They've also heard of the project a little while back. It's going to include some new locations, including the city of Baghdad as well, which is, I believe, is roughly where Basim originates from within the story. He's not from the British Isles. He's not from France or anywhere. He's from further afield. The project originally began as an expansion for Assassin's Creed Valhalla, but has since morphed into its own smaller standalone title, similar to Uncharted Lost Legacy did as a spin-off for Uncharted 4 over on PlayStation. It is not the big sprawling open world style of Valhalla or Odyssey, but instead it's going to be considered one of the smaller gameplays ever put out, and more importantly, it's going to focus on Basim's character, flesh out his events from Valhalla, with a bit more story focused on stealth and gameplay. So maybe, Richie, akin to the more classic Assassin's Creed style. Creeping around, stealth killing people, lots of story beats and elements, as opposed to the mass sprawling open worlds.
I actually really like the sound of this. Honestly, I'm glad it's not DLC, because if it's DLC, I almost certainly won't play, because I very, very rarely play DLC.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that it's a standalone thing, I'm more likely to play for it. Even if it was literally the same content, something being DLC usually gets me to just not be interested in the slightest.
Mm-hmm.
And also, with it not being DLC, with being its own standalone thing, they can tweak the gameplay, the formula a bit more.
Yeah.
Which I think could be very good for Assassin's Creed, because it means they don't have to take risks with the big tentpole of the franchise, like a Valhalla or an Odyssey. But then they can also play with the format a bit. So if they want to go, you know what, this is going to be a very stealth-focused gameplay, you go, forget about the action, forget about range combat. It's a purely stealth thing. They could do that in these smaller story stuff, which they might not work as well in the big Assassin's Creed title.
Yeah, it's an interesting pivot for Assassin's Creed, because we're going to talk about it as part of story number 2, because Dawn of Ragnarok is on the horizon. I believe it comes out early March. And obviously, Valhalla, they've said Dawn of Ragnarok is the biggest expansion to Valhalla ever, and it's interesting to think that this is now spun off from being expanded DLC content as well. So I'm thinking of Ubisoft's development cycle, and it's starting to look a little bit more likely that we might not see another main entry this year, which I'm fine with.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely fine that we don't see a main entry. I mean, Dawn of Ragnarok is meant to be about 40 hours long. So that's basically a game.
Yeah, it certainly is. But you're right in saying that. Actually, if it does come out as standalone, it is almost a little bit more intriguing, because it's almost like an entry unto itself. The character of Basim I actually found quite interesting within Valhalla. I don't think he was the best character, but
there's some interesting stuff with them, especially at the end.
Well, it's very integral to the story. Yeah, definitely. Because you and me have both finished it, and if anyone out there is a big Valhalla fan, we have a spoiler cast, an entire hour-long spoiler cast breaking down Assassin's Creed Valhalla, the characters, the gameplay, the mechanics, how it fits into the wider lore of Assassin's Creed. Available now on the channel as one of our early SideQuest episodes. So go check that out.
It might be SideQuest 2 or 3. It's like one of the first ones we did.
Very, very early. And then we realised that spoiler casts aren't great topics, because not everybody's finished the games. So
also it's very, very difficult to fit it into the hour, SideQuest, which is meant to be a smaller show.
Indeed it is. But I'm interested to see what this could be. I'm a big fan of all Assassin's Creed, as many of the viewers and listeners know, going right back to the original one. Yeah. And if you can give me the mass sprawling worlds of Valhalla, Odyssey, and Origins, but at the same time I might get like little interstitial stories that may be 10, 15 hours that focus more on old style gameplay, I'll take that.
You know what? I kind of think I'd like to see Ubisoft go, you know what, Dawn of Ragnarok, it's not going to be Assassin's Creed Valhalla DLC. It's going to be its own standalone thing. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's a 40-hour game.
Yeah, it could very much be. And let's be honest,
I think they'd do better.
Yeah,
because then there's people like me who just kind of just go, DLC, not really bothered. I'm kind of done with that game. Mm-hmm. But if you pitch it to me as a new game, it's a different story.
Mm-hmm. And this is where Ubisoft almost paint themselves into a corner by insisting on labelling everything with the Assassin's Creed moniker, Because let's face it, Dawn of Ragnarok is not an Assassin's Creed game. It's not about the Templars. It's not about the Creed. It's about like giant gods and monsters from Norse mythology. It features Surtur, it's Odin fighting out across the plains of the Nine Realms and stuff. And then obviously Basim's story will be, but Valhalla to a degree was quite detached from your classical kind of story they were trying to tell. And then you've got the future stuff, which could be its own Watch Dogs-esque game unto itself. And we've laughed before, but like Skull and Bones was a spin-off essentially of Assassin's Creed Black Flag, and that's still not out yet. So again, if you could almost go back, I would have played a game based in Egypt. I would have played a game based in Greece. Whether or not it was Assassin's Creed related, it's interesting to see how the sales figures and the interest in the franchise might have been if it had not had AC attached to it.
I've always felt after Black Flag what they should have done is create a spin-off franchise called Pirates Creed. And that's going to take the more the Black Flaggy style stuff. It's going to be set in the same universe. It can continue the stories, but right. So then you kind of got Assassin's Creed is going to be more the stealth action RPG side of it, and the Pirates Creed is going to be the more boat out at seas, traveling from island to island stuff.
Indeed.
And yeah, it's all set in the same universe. Like, so Skull and Bones would be probably Pirates Creed 1 for me.
Yeah,
but yeah,
it's
and
interesting.
then you could almost have like this new stuff where they're going very quite mystical with the Norse gods and stuff, in like Dawn of Ragnarok, as a third like thing in the entry. So it's not an Assassin's Creed game; it's something else, God's Creed or something, whatever.
Something
with a better title than that. Yeah.
What about Gods and Monsters?
Gods and Monsters, yeah.
Copyright. Yes, over on Eurogamer, they actually ran a poll to see if people were more excited about a smaller scale Assassin's Creed. 65% said, oh yes. 28% holding judgment for trailers and gameplay. 7% said, I'm an Assassin's Creed fan, but this doesn't sound great. And 0% said they've never been an Assassin's Creed fan, so they won't help. No surprise that on an Assassin's Creed article, people aren't an Assassin's Creed fan.
Yeah, because why? If you're not a fan of this franchise, you're probably not reading this unless you just want something to hate on.
Indeed.
And then your opinions are irrelevant.
Exactly.
So.
And then the follow-up question was, what do you think of Basim as a main character? 35% said the guy rules, super happy he gets his own game. 39% he'll do. So that's the majority. 17% would have preferred another character. 9% are still holding out for a Desmond-only game. Throwback to Desmond, Nolan North's character.
Yeah, there was always a thing where, like, I think in the early Assassin's Creed, they kind of split between going back in the past and then with Desmond, like, in the future. But you never really got that modern setting Assassin's Creed where you played as Desmond. And I remember playing through, like, especially like Assassin's Creed 2 trilogy. It's like, it felt like that's where it could have been heading, where you actually get to have a game set in present day, which I think would be awesome.
I mean, yeah, there's like ties. There is ties, as I joked before, into Watch Dogs, like the company that like makes the Animus and everything, and that actually in I think maybe Assassin's Creed 3, you work for the Stergo in like modern 21st century. Is in its first person. It's really weird. It's in first person. It kind of breaks the whole style of the game. But they are in the world of Watch Dogs, and they have a full business running in 2021 or whatever the year.
What I found is, after the end of Desmond's story, I no longer cared about the modern day stuff in Assassin's Creed, because it just felt like it wasn't really tied into the story at all. It just felt like, because we've got this concept of an animus, we need to put someone in it.
Yeah,
and that's about as far as it went.
Yeah, and
with Desmond, like the two, like the history and the modern day stuff were very, very much intertwined.
Certainly.
And
this is why I'm a little intrigued to see what Assassin's Creed Infinity looks like, because if the way Ubisoft are going and everything's like games as a service, lives as a service, I've said before, I'd quite happily play Assassin's Creed Infinity, and the seasonal content is, you get one season in Renaissance Italy, you get one season is in Valhalla, you get one season that's in ancient Greece, and it kind of just... the game exists as a world, and you just jump into different parts of the Animus to explore different people's histories. That can be story based, it can be online, it can be a multitude of things, and I think that's probably what Ubisoft want. But it's can they land the plane? That's the trick.
Yeah, I don't see. For me, if Assassin's Creed Infinity is this kind of, you create your character in like a hub world, and you climb in the Animus, and then you can go back to play like smaller stories, like kind of what we did with the the Odyssey Valhalla crossover stuff. I think that could be great. Depends how it's monetized. And I've got a feeling there's going to be some pretty not fun stuff in there from Ubisoft.
Quartz NFTs everywhere.
Yeah.
Everywhere.
And it's like, and almost a feeling that it's like, why does this need to be an online, like a games as a service thing? If it's ultimately a single player experience, why have it? Why have the infrastructure to have other people in there as well? I don't know. I really need to see more about what the concept is, because we basically have a title and that's it from that.
Yeah, it does indeed. I'm sure we'll hear more as the Ubisoft Forward. We'd actually probably due a Ubisoft Forward some point between now and April. I'm pretty sure they did one about this time last year. So, and the future for the year ahead of Ubisoft, we know about Avatar. We know we're getting Division Heartlands. We know there's Tom Clancy's X Defiant on the way, but they don't actually have a busy slate as they have done in the past year. Once they shit out all of them 4 games in 2 months over Christmas last year, we've actually had a slowdown of things. Obviously, we got Far Cry and Riders Republic, but there's not as much on their slate as you would perceive.
I think Skull and Bones is still slated for this year.
Well, we've got a story coming up shortly about one of their games.
Actually, if you think about it, we've got Skull and Bones slated for this year, and now Assassin's Creed Basim's been leaked. There's kind of 2 things that could easily be the building blocks of your forward.
Yeah, and then you've got all the seasonal content that comes with all those titles anyway. So imminently due, I'm sure, imminently due, and maybe we'll see Stadia there. Maybe we'll see Phil Harrison, because we know Ubisoft are big supporters still of the platform. Maybe we'll hear about Sands of Time coming to Stadia, and actually, if anything, we should be hearing about Blood Dragon soon. It's February now. Far Cry came out in like October, didn't it? Far Cry 6, and it's supposed to be supposed to come with that. So, and the last we should point out the last Joseph Seed Far Cry 6 DLC, paid content DLC, is out now as well. It came out last week. So the Far Cry team are done with that. So now Blood Dragon should be the last thing on their list, I guess. So, and I know people are still out there asking for Far Cry 4 isn't on Stadia yet. Alongside
the Ezio collection,
that was never announced. That was never leaked and rated and stuff, though, so we don't know about that one. But again, I do genuinely think they'll all come. I think Ubisoft want every game in the cloud on every platform for when they make that pivot to telling everyone that Stadia powers Ubisoft in the cloud, and that's a whole different thing. But we're not done yet, Richie, with Assassin's Creed stories, because Dawn of Ragnarok, as we alluded to, is due out imminently, but they actually did drop a deep dive trailer this week, which showcased a bit more about the story, a bit more about the style and gameplay. And to me, this is starting to look a bit like Assassin's Creed Shadow of Mordor. It's spread across Svartalfheim, which is it says the Dwarven realm in the video, but I thought that was Nivedavia, whatever it's called in
Niflheim, I think.
Yeah, I know. I don't know, man. This is why we need Tom for his Norse mythology history lessons.
I thought Svartalfheim was like the elves.
Yeah, that's it says in the trailer that, and that's what made me think.
Yeah, it's the Dark Elves.
Yeah, but he says it's where the Earthforge is. But the Earthforge, I thought, was the dwarves, and it was where Peter Dinklage is in Infinity War. It's Nivedalia, is it? You know what I mean? Where he forges he needs the axe, like that whole thing happens. But yes, back to Assassin's Creed Dawn of Ragnarok. You'll be fighting, of course, against in Muspelheim against Surtur, which again you'll be familiar with if any MCU fans out there. But they've mentioned there's going to be tricks that come into it, like frost powers and fire powers that have different qualities that are very reminiscent of Shadow of Mordor. So Richie, you can teleport using your bow and arrow. You can raise the dead. You can, as your own fighters. So anyone you've killed, you can raise them back up. You can travel from area to area, kind of like jumping around. I mean, not that I don't like it, but there's a whole new skill tree dedicated to it, and it's very interesting.
It's very much not an Assassin's Creed game.
No, and this is what I was saying with, there's like floating Avatar-esque orbs and everything. And of course, it's continuing the kind of the Odin mythology story that you play sprinkled throughout Valhalla. You can still pick to play as both female or male Eivor/Odin. And I'm looking forward to it. I love some Norse mythology. God of War is still at some point out this year. But
this is why I think it should. This is why I think it should be its own standalone game rather than DLC for Ragnarok, because it's not Ragnarok. It's Well, no, it is Ragnarok. It's not Valhalla. Sorry.
It's not God of War Ragnarok.
It's like, yeah, it's like it just everything about the game looks like a different game, it's just built in the same engine with like similar UI elements and stuff. But I don't know. I just feel like this could have been a smaller standalone title to like kind of spin off. Like, you know what, we're going to start doing. Give like Norse mythology, Egyptian mythology, whatever, Roman mythology, the kind of Assassin's Creed treatment. But basically what I'm saying is they're making God of War.
I mean, to a degree, It's going to have some interest. I'm sure the team over at Ubisoft basically take what works well and thinks, how can we tweak it? So I believe if you're in fire mode, you can run on ice. If you're in ice mode, you can kill fire creatures. It's almost like Pokemon, like elemental fire beats all the XYZ. You can turn into an eagle to travel around, so it's going to have a bit more flight traversal, which I appreciate, because with a large map, sometimes tediously climbing over fences and trees and running across fields, it does get a bit long in the tooth if you have a crappy design horse who won't jump over little fences and rocks. But I digress. This could be standalone, and it's interesting to think that it's coming out as I believe it's a £40 expansion, so it's a decent chunk of game, and as you said, 40 hours, so £1 per hour.
Again, then you go like, it's 40 quid for DLC.
Yeah.
If someone, that's the thing. The way I'm looking at this is, this is probably worth the £40, right, based on the estimated length of the game. Mm-hmm. But if you told someone, the new Assassin's Creed, who hasn't like watched the trailers and new Assassin's Creed Valhalla DLC is out, it's £40, you're going to get punched in the face.
With an axe.
Well, verbally, it's not going to be a good reaction to that unless people dig into what the game is.
Yeah.
But if they went, there's a new Assassin's Creed spin-off game, it's 40 quid.
Mm-hmm.
You haven't changed the content, you've just changed the perception of it.
Indeed. Now, with all the similarities as well, I will take this as a moment to side note and say that the Lord of the Rings gaming and movie and TV rights are up for auction at this time, apparently for about $2 billion. Not that Ubisoft would ever buy them, but looking at this expansion with the travel and the traversal and the new worlds, give me a Ubisoft Middle Earth with like Assassin's Creed style roaming and fighting and side quests and stuff, and I will gobble that up easily.
You know who I'd love Sony to buy them?
Or buy the Lord of the Rings?
Yeah.
I mean,
so they've got the movie studios, so they can make movies and stuff. And their first-party studios are quite diverse in terms of what they can pull out. Imagine you could have like a Middle Shadow of War style game made by what do you call it? The guys who make Horizon, Guerrilla.
Yeah.
And then you've got Naughty Dog to do a more linear-focused story games. I think there's. It's fantasy ripe for the picking, isn't it? Really. Where if you. As much as I do like Ubisoft at times, the games for me usually fall at the 7 to 8 out of 10 and never try to push beyond it. And I think you just kind of get, you get to the end of like a Lord of the Rings game made by Ubisoft and you go, that was decent.
Yeah.
Rather than going, oh my god, that was awesome. Like.
Yeah, that is true. You know what, whoever gets the rights, just remake the EA games, Two Towers and Return of the King. I'll take that as well.
Yeah.
In like all the highest fidelity. Give me some hack and slash. Give it I think we covered it on one of the shows. I might have read the report, but the Koei Tecmo who do Dynasty Warriors, they said they'd love a crack at Star Wars, I think it was. And it was like, yes.
That would be great.
Just give me like loads of enemies and just let me have at them like a kid. I don't
as
need
much
any
as Attack of the As much as Attack of the Clones is maligned, imagine the
arena scene.
The arena scene, yeah. And the made by Koei Tecmo. That'd be fun.
Diddling. Indeed it will. But that's all we know for now. It won't be long until it's out. I probably will jump back into it, to be fair. Once I've finished off Horizon Forbidden West, I think there's not that much that's in that kind of spring period that's due out. I'm tempted by Elden Ring, but as I'm not a Dark Souls fan, I'm going to see what the reviews are like before I dive into it. And yeah, it might be the perfect time for me to jump into Assassin's Creed. They might have timed this DLC drop in a sweet spot. They've looked at what's happening in February in games and went March. As an interesting side point, then, I'm guessing Dawn of Ragnarok's included for Ubisoft Plus subscribers, right? It must be.
Yeah, it will
would
be.
have thought, yeah. So that's, I guess, £40 saves if you've got your monthly subscription.
I've actually cancelled mine.
So far.
But I've cancelled it. But if I want to play a Ubisoft game, I'll just reactivate it. Like,
that's the benefit of a subscription. I, for one, I think probably feel the same as you. I enjoyed Rainbow Six Extraction, but after I scratched that itch, I don't really have any reason to go back to it.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, fun game, but I just,
same.
And at this moment in time, I've got Destiny sat there for free. So if I did want that shooter itch, I could just jump back into Destiny.
And I did jump into a few other games while I had Ubisoft Plus.
All right, what did you check out?
I had a quick look at Anno. I had a quick look at Far Cry. Again, I just bounced around a bit. I was more just wanting to let's look at the library. You know, you're just downloading stuff. Like, I was playing mainly on PC rather than Stadia. Because part of it is I've never really used my PC as a gaming PC. So I wanted to see how much I could push it, and surprisingly, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, my graphics card does need an upgrade eventually, but if I wanted to use it as a primary gaming device, but for something like, if I just wanted to play something like Anno or Civ, it's absolutely fine. That's what I kind of wanted to test out, really, with modern games, because my Steam library is a bit dated nowadays.
Yeah, I don't think Roller Coaster Tycoon is pushing your PC to its absolute limits.
Yeah.
But fun all the same. And
but nothing clicked, basically. It's not, and then it's like, well, then I end up playing Uncharted. I've got, Kena Bridge of Spirits on the works. I've bought all the Pokemon games.
Plenty to do, and plenty to play. And all the pro games to test out as well. Moving on then to story number 3 of the week. Resident Evil 4 Remake is having some rumours. Of course, we had the VR edition come out last year for Oculus Quest, I believe it was. But the rumour is that the 4 Remake is making some changes and it could be announced imminently. So it's been a while since we heard anything about the Resident Evil 4 Remake, but a new report from Fanbyte suggests the project is making some changes to the beloved game. Citing sources and speaking to the website, the claims the remake is expected to be revealed early 2022. Therefore, if all goes to plan, it may not be too far away, Richie. The changes made in the remake, however, are what fans are most interested in. The famous introductory sequence with Leon Kennedy, where he's chased by a gang of villagers at night time, is going to apparently take place under the cover of darkness to add a more scarier tone to the game. Of course, being remade in the RE engine. I think Resident Evil 4 is probably one of the more revered of the franchise, and if memory serves me right, it's already had several remakes over the decades.
I find Resident Evil 4 a weird one, because it does often come up in greatest games of all time lists, but I kind of think it's the point where Resident Evil started moving away from its survival horror into more action horror, which ended up in like Resident Evil 5 and 6, which were kind of panned massively. Yeah. So it's like, I think maybe they just hit this game at the right time, but then went, more action is good, and then they've pushed it too far with 5 and 6, and then went back to the roots a bit more with 7 and 8.
Yeah, and I think Capcom have found such success with the 2 and 3 remakes that naturally 4 was going to be the next stop on the train journey. But with this one, apparently they're looking to incorporate certain campaigns of the story. So there's a Simon Ada and Separate Ways are 2 kind of separate stories. They're looking to fold them in with the main story a little bit more. So it's actually more coherent from start to finish, which if you're going to remake it for the millionth time, do something different. Bring the DLC into the story, fold it and make it a more solid, coherent, playable title.
I mean, Resident Evil's kind of always had that kind of, you pick your character and the story plays out different. Well, the story doesn't play out different. Well, it's assumed that, say, if in the first game you're playing as Jill, Chris is out there and the playthrough you had as Chris happens at the same time. Which isn't it always been an interesting concept, but I think if you know what, we're just going to tie these all into one thing, a bit more cohesive. Yeah, it's a nice change.
It's kind of like, does it benefit the 2 side stories when you could have one going throughout?
Rather than having a feeling like 2 playthroughs of a fairly short game, the game's a bit longer and you're just playing through once. I think there's going to be Resident Evil 4 fans who hate this.
100%.
But I personally, as someone who has never played Resident Evil 4, prefer it.
Yeah, if you give me like every other chapter, we bounce back to the other character and then return in the story. You can almost see the story being pulled along by each character as it goes. They've also said they're going to, or it's also rumoured, sorry, to say that the side characters are going to be given larger roles and more screen time. So again, if you're going to flesh out the story, if there's some fan favourite characters or people who are incorporated to the story, why not? If you're remaking it, give them some new lines, give them a bit more stuff to do, and go from there. But looking at the history of these RE games, Richie, it's no surprise they have enjoyed coming out maybe in a quieter period of the year. I think originally 2 came out in the springtime, and then 3 followed. So, and then I think we got Village last summer, June time, I think, if I recall. So they don't necessarily go for the busy Christmas periods. They like to keep them earlier in the year.
I'd aim for October for this Halloween game. Resident Evil's a big enough franchise to claim Halloween.
Oh, completely.
Yeah, the Halloween period, Resident Evil, let's go.
I wonder if they see themselves big enough that they don't need the Halloween bump, and then they come out with their big main sales, and then come Halloween, people will go. You know, like say Christmas songs. If you've got a Christmas song, everyone gets royalties for the rest of their career. Cause
it's possible if you come out in the first half of the year, and then you get drop a cheeky sale on it around Halloween to get that second bump. I don't know, they'd have to, but I think if this is due to get like kind of formally announced, because it is at the time just not announced, like soon, it's possible later in the year it could come out. I think early next year.
Yeah, well, the turnaround from 2 to 3 remake was 1 year. It was really, really quick. So,
but they were originally the same project, so
very true.
That does change a lot.
Yeah.
So like a lot of stuff for free was already done by the time 2 came out.
Indeed. We should also point out as well, not confirmed for Stadia. I think we're just wishing and hoping that we got 7 last year. It was a big boom.
We got confirmed for anything.
We got it. We got Village then quickly followed with a Premier Edition promo. Yeah. So we've said for a while on this show that actually I'd love to see Remake 2 and 3 come, and I'd hope 4. It's from the same development team. They know Stadia now through and through. Why wouldn't it come? I mean, they're still developing RE-verse. Remember, the free content supposed to be coming with Village. That we're now 8 months out from the launch of Village, and we're still yet to hear any more from it being pushed back to this year.
Yeah, I think Resident Evil are due for like Capcom will come out ready for like a Connect or something for Resident Evil.
Yeah, well they do the little
announce this, bring out verse.
Yeah, they have like the little showcase pieces with it's Brittany Brombacher, I think, who hosts them.
Yeah.
And she's a massive Resident Evil fan. And I think they need to give us an update on RE-verse, tell us what the hell's going on with that, because people who bought the game last summer are not getting what they were promised, really.
Yeah.
So far detached. Like, it's a weird business practice in games.
And you know what, another weird thing I think they should do once this is out? Obviously make a Resident Evil like 9, but remake Resident Evil 1 again.
Just to have.
I know they have already remade it once, but now that's like the remake's old. That was in the GameCube.
Yeah, I would, because as someone, I think we've dabbled in 2 together over Halloween. We've played 7 and Village. I think having the full remake collection 1, 2, 3, 4 would be a nice little package to have.
And then they just forget about 5 and 6 and just keep going on with.
I actually think I played quite a lot of 6 with its co-op campaign, and I didn't mind it. But again, I was more into the action oriented than I was horror.
Yeah,
at that time.
For me, I've never played them, but I know the reception them 2 games got, and I think if I was making the decision, if I was at Capcom making the decision, do we do a remake of 5 and 6? I'd look at the reception of the games and go, I don't think there's enough money in it, quite frankly. I think a lot of people just go, I didn't like that game, I don't care.
Yeah, I think
where 1 and 4 is like, I love these games, give me.
2 more, selling Resident Evil. The reason I ask is because I feel like 6 and 5, the switch towards those, actually sold quite well. So Resident Evil 6 and 5 both sold around 8.1 million units.
Yeah.
So it's still actually the sales data shows that they're not doing too bad.
I might be mistaken on 5. 5's got a 9.3 in IGN.
Yeah, so as it stands, Resident Evil 6 and 5, 8.1 million. Resident Evil Village, 5.7. RE2, 4, 3. So it's interesting to think actually, as much as they got critically panned for being more actiony games, they did sell more.
Yeah, I think I might be misrepresenting them a bit. I think it was while these games are probably good games, because I mean, Resident Evil 6 has got a 7.9 out of 10 on IGN, which is respectable. Like,
oh yeah, definitely.
I think it's just that because of more actiony is like I think it's probably just the buzz like from the hardcore Resident Evil fans. This is not survival horror.
Yeah.
And Resident Evil, to my mind, is the biggest game in the survival horror genre.
Yeah. Well, yeah, they've totally got that.
So it's like, yeah, so if the big... And like, yeah, Resident Evil moving away from survival horror is kind of almost the death of the genre.
Yeah, it's not... When is it not Resident Evil anymore?
I think I've been harsh on 5 and 6 there, to be honest.
Well, maybe we'll get... You know what? I would take them. I'd take them on Stadia. So hopefully we'll hear an update.
I'd take them on Stadia. I'd take anything
soon,
on Stadia.
And hopefully we'll hear more about those as it comes about. But let's now, Richie, go beyond Good and Resident Evil over to the next story, which is the rumoured report coming out across the internet of Ubisoft's Beyond Good and Evil 2. Is that it's probably a long way off still, just like the much maligned Skull and Bones title. This project, new reports coming out that it's still in pre-production, of course. We don't know that it's confirmed for Google Stadia. However, with the Ubisoft partnership and Ubisoft Plus, it's probably a safe bet that this game will be coming. But yeah, remember Good and Evil 2, Richie? They showed a trailer off at like E3 back in 2017.
Which the most depressing thing about the story is 2017 was 5 years ago.
Oh, before Stadia's inception, even before cloud gaming was a thing. And yeah, new report again from Bloomberg comes over there and says that, yeah, to put it bluntly, don't get your hopes up anytime soon. The report states that Beyond Good and Evil 2 is still in pre-production following 5 years of development. In other words, Ubisoft just has not been able to get this game off the ground. There was a gameplay demonstration supposed to happen last year. That never materialised. There was a beta due in 2019. That never materialised. And then rumours have started to swirl about a troubled dev cycle, and insiders are claiming that the title is still years away from completion.
If the reports are accurate that it's still in pre-production, you can pretty much well call that a troubled dev cycle. 5 years in and they haven't started making the game properly yet.
Yeah. This was announced for PS4 as well.
Yeah, honestly, this is a scrap it. Do people really care enough about Beyond Good and Evil 2 at this point? For like, I almost feel like I don't know the devs at Ubisoft, but imagine if you're on the team working Beyond Good and Evil 2. You've been 5 years, you haven't got the game off the ground yet, and then one day your boss comes in and goes, "The decision's been made. We're not making it." Imagine the relief. You might be disappointed, but just like, oh well, because there's 5 years down the drain. But it's like, thank God we can move on to something else.
Oh, completely.
No,
yeah, I remember the trailer, watching it at the E3 event or whatever it was, and thinking, what the hell is this? Because I've never played the franchise before. Of course, the original came out in 2003. It's an action-adventure game that was on PS2, Xbox, the original Xbox, and GameCube. I don't really have any memory of this game existing, so when it came back, I know loads of people within the industry were like amazed and like, oh yes, it's coming back. We're finally getting the sequel to this favoured game, and it just
skipped a generation, but it's back.
Yeah, and it just kind of did nothing for me. So just to give people a bit of context, Beyond Good and Evil takes place in the year 2435 on a mining planet of Hillies, located in a remote section of the galaxy. And you play as the characters are Jade and Pete taking care of children in the Hillies orphanage. And then, well received.
Yeah.
Can't find anything on gameplay.
2435 was that?
24.
That's probably when they get.
Yeah.
That's probably when they're estimated for Beyond Good and Evil 2 to come out.
Yeah, there's a combat staff as a melee weapon. Jade's health represents stars. Attacks restore health, knocking them off balance, vulnerable to attack. So almost just like an action beat 'em up, hack and slash type of game with, I'm guessing, zany characters. Do let us know in the comments below if Beyond Good and Evil 2 is your like most awaited game of all time, and you can't believe we don't know what we're talking about. But yeah.
I mean, Metacritic scores are pretty good. It's like 86 for PS2, 87 for Xbox, 87 for GameCube. I mean, this game was received well. I understand why they're trying to make a second one, but it just feels like we're almost 20 years out from the initial launch of like Beyond Good and Evil.
Just is it?
And this game was announced 5 years ago, which means that it was probably getting worked on before then.
Yeah, some things you should just let sit.
Yeah, it's like sometimes you need to cut your losses. And I feel this might be one of them.
Yeah, like
unless they come out with a Ubisoft 4 and go, you know what, it's going to be next year. We're going to aim for a 20-year anniversary.
I mean, maybe, yeah. But it does make you think like it's work like this that could be put into like a new IP, something different, something fresh.
It's fair. We don't know how much work has actually been getting done on it. It might be a case of the studio keeps working on other projects as well. So that might be one of the reasons for the delays. If it's like being deprioritized at Ubisoft's development studios a bit. So it's like, well, once we get these other games out the way first, then we'll go back to it, and then other things come up. Okay, we need to be a pivot onto this, and then we go back to it, and then move on to this, and then move back to it. If it's not had that consistent one team focusing on trying to get it done. But it's the fact that it's rumored to be in pre-production. Yeah,
it's not in final development.
Yeah,
no beta's out, no more gameplay, no gameplay's been seen. It's just the cinematic trailer.
I'm not a developer, so I don't know fully the lifespan of a game through its development cycle. But to me, pre-production sounds like the stage where you kind of figure out what the game is before you've made it. You start making it properly.
Exactly.
So you're probably still testing mechanics and things of that nature.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll find out soon. But I'll tell you what, we won't have to wait too long for, Richie. The next story and the next game that is coming on Google Stadia. It was announced this week from Wired Productions. Breaking news, dive into Lumote, the Mastermote Chronicles, coming to Google Stadia. Squish, bop, and bounce through the great depths and underwater-filled world with motes, bioluminescent creatures who spend their lives deep in the bioverse, living on the rhythms and electronica soundscape. Lumote is a mote different from others. Inquisitive with an eye on power, when the shift causes the great depths to turn red, Lumote sets out on an epic quest to return the world blue. To do so, Lumote must learn to take control of the great depths' inhabitants and gain mastery of its puzzles in order to defeat the great mote of them all, the Mastermote. This one kind of came out of nowhere. Wired Productions have been teasing things for a little time now over on social media, and they came out and announced it's coming to Switch, PC, PS4, Xbox, and surprise, ... Google Stadia. They've been quite big supporters. Now, this game, for those watching visually, you play as like a kind of little bioluminescent squid character. It looks like a 3D puzzle platformer in a way.
Yeah, it looks pretty cool, to be honest.
It does. It's got a nice colour palette to it as well, solving puzzles. I'm trying to think what it would be akin to, because it doesn't look like there's much, I want to say action. It definitely looks more like solving puzzles. There's no like enemies that I can see. It's more calculating your way around the world and avoiding enemies as opposed to combat.
There's elements that kind of remind me a bit of like something like Death Squared, where you've got like the lasers going at characters, so you have to kind of work your way through it. But yeah, I think it's just a puzzle platformer, and great. I like puzzle platformers.
Yeah, I like it as well. Hopefully, it'll have some kind. It could have some kind of co-op. But yeah, I love the colourful world in it. I like how they're incorporating something different. You don't really see deep sea creatures utilised in video games as much as, especially when they look like aliens. Quite frankly.
Yeah, it feels like a Stadia Pro game for me though.
Oh,
this one
undoubtedly.
I doubt it will be a Stadia Pro game on launch, just based on the time when it's actually getting launched late in the month. Mm-hmm. If it was going to be a Pro game, you'd think they'd launch it like, okay, we'll launch it the 1st of April. We'll delay it 1 week.
Yeah, we'll see. I'm sure it'll come eventually. It's in that right price category, I'd imagine. But you don't have to wait long. March 24th is the launch date for Lumote, so it's great to see we're getting another title newly announced from the developers over there. We'll no doubt hear about it as part of the blog next week, because we did have a community blog this week, Richie. It unfortunately didn't give us anything we didn't already know, which is kind of the cadence we've came to know from the blog post, because we cover it on the show. We do the reviews, we do the news, and then every week the blog drops, and I quickly jump over to it. Our Discord chat pops off that it's out, and news this week: My Hero 1 Justice 2. Covered it last week. Dynasty Warriors, it'll be coming soon. Covered it last week. Rainbow Six Extraction demo. Jackbox Party 7. Madden 22. Elder Scrolls update. Joseph Seed Collapse DLC. And Destiny 2 Light of Darkness.
I think this is part of the problem of a fortnightly release for these blogs, that you just don't... you sometimes are going. You might get occasionally you will get an announcement in there, but largely I think it's going to be slightly behind the news schedule.
Yeah, it's never going to be breaking news.
Let's be fair though, the Stadia blog isn't for us because we are, well, we're reporting. We're literally recording a show right now, telling you what's coming.
Is that what we're doing?
Might be coming to Stadia. Yeah. So it's like, I sometimes do wonder who the blog is for, because it's not there to get more people onto the platform, because it's a terrible way to approach that. So it's only really for players who are on the platform who are not engaged in anything outside of just gaming. So I suppose that is probably of most players on Stadia.
Yeah, it recaps the news, which is, I guess, its intent. Same with the save points. Like, the save points never have anything new, maybe other than a little snippet at the end that says 100 games that people get excited about. But other news, moving on then from the blog, because there's nothing new to report on. SmashBall, new game, apparently coming, but now is not coming to Google Stadia. It's a competitive Rocket League with mech suits, Richie, to give you the concept of it. Choose a variety of customizational options to suit your mech's needs. Do you have a need for speed? You got it. Protection and tankiness? You got it. Health, so you aren't a frail mech and burst into fire? You got it. That's not enough. Arm yourself with weapons, explosives, and fight in the action in SmashBall.
It looks like kind of air hockey with mechs.
Yeah, 3D Pong with mechs.
Yeah,
it is what it is. It's been in development for quite some time, actually.
It's not coming, so it doesn't really.
Well, matter. Play across various tournaments, beautiful arenas, etc., etc. But unfortunately, Stadia Source, our good friends over at Stadia Source, reached out to the developers of SmashBall, who've confirmed that actually the game is no longer coming to Stadia. So it looked like their official website had it listed as a release platform, but since reaching out to them for a bit more news, we've unfortunately got... That's what happens. You hear about a story of a game coming, you reach out to the devs to say, oh, actually, we'd like to know a bit more about this title, and they go, it's actually not coming. Sorry about that. We haven't updated our website in quite some time. Which, again, I'd be intrigued to know why, if it was listed. Like, what has fell down in the chain of communication? Is it a financial issue? Is it a Stadia thing? Is it a developer? Because they're only an indie developer, so it's not like they might just not be able to get it across. Something might be stuck.
If I had to be quite cynical, I think they probably looked at it and went, Stadia is the lowest priority we have. Is it? And then will we sell enough copy? If it's not a Stadia Pro game, let's assume it's not. Do we think we'll sell enough copies on that platform to make it worthwhile putting the effort in to move it over there?
Yeah.
Or are we better off just focusing our efforts on other platforms? I think that's probably it.
Yeah. I could see it coming back out at a later date if it does well on other platforms. But again, it's just a shame to hear stuff that gets pulled, because there's got to be a reason for it. So we'll see. Time will tell with SmashBall. But we've got Lumotes, so who matters? Yeah. Another game that is actually scheduled on the horizon, which I wanted to just shine a bit more light on the podcast, because I don't think we've done that much coverage of this game previously, is Instinction. An Instinction game, which is a action dinosaur first-person shooter-based game from Hashbane Studios. They put up a poll this week that allows you to go and vote for the dinosaurs you would like to see in extinction. It's a very exhaustive list, and it's likely some requests will be missed, because as we know, there are many dinosaur species out there. Well, not out there, I guess. They are out there. They're just buried deep underground upon layers and layers of rock. So Richie, you can go over and vote. You got a favourite dinosaur that you'd like to take out?
I did actually vote.
What did you pick?
I went for a Ming vote because I couldn't be bothered to research all the dinosaurs, and I only saw the poll as we were prepping for the show. So I went with Barney.
Barney the purple dinosaur.
Yeah.
I somehow, unless it's some kind of horror mod, I don't think Barney will quite make it across to be in the game.
I want to start a campaign though. Like, everyone vote for Barney. If you scroll down to the bottom, there's an option to go other, and you can just write in, and I just wrote Barney in. If we get, you know what? I hope if enough people do something like that, I hope to see it, and they put like a little Easter egg, like just like a plushie of Barney in the corner of one of a room somewhere.
Yeah, that would be fun to see. It's
give it an achievement as well. I found Barney or something.
Yeah, Instinction's one of those games that I hadn't really looked much into, but after watching the trailer while I was prepping for the show. Why are dinosaurs limited to Jurassic Park, Jurassic World? Like, why do they have the kind of the the whole mindset on dinosaur. Like, you don't get dinosaur movies really, Richie, outside of that franchise. Games, we had Turok for a time on N64, and we had Dino Crisis, which I would love. Speaking back to Resident Evil, I would love Capcom to go back and remake Dino Crisis. That game scared the shit out of me as a kid, but I was such a Jurassic Park fan. I played a 15-plus game when I was probably 10, 11-year-old instead, because I was such a fan of dinosaurs. Let's see, what have we got? I'm a big fan of the Ankylosaurus. That's a good armoured enemy to take down. Of course, you've got your classics, Velociraptor, your Brachiosaurs and stuff. Diplodocus, Dodo. That could be like the
I saw Dodo.
Little chicken characters.
Dodo was going to be my main vote before I realised there was an other section I could just write in.
Oh, right, you can just anything. I think there's supposed to be is it Gigantosaurus or Gigasaurus? Gigamax? It's like almost like Pokemon now. Gigamax. Gigasaurus.
Mega Gigasaurus. It's like a Digimon.
And there is there is of course the Megalodon, the big giant crocodile creature from the movies.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's so many. But get yourself over there. Get yourself to the Instinction Dino poll on the website. Vote for it, and you might see it in the game.
Vote for Barney. Vote for Barney,
says Richie. Fan of the dinosaur. But yeah, I'm intrigued by it. The game looks gorgeous from the gameplay trailer cinematic trailer we've seen. Hunting down dinosaurs. I don't know. I don't think they've actually said yet if it's got any multiplayer. But I'm down for it. We got that one on Xbox last year, but I didn't really hear anything after it. I forgot what it was. Dinosaur.
I want to see a bit more of what the game is. Is it just like a kind of Monster Hunter style game where you're just going out in the world and you're just hunting dinosaurs so you can get more loot, and this kind of got that loop, or is this actually going to be a story-driven game?
That was the game, Second Extinction on Steam, which was a first-person shooter cooperative team game. Similar, it was basically Apex Legends with dinosaurs, but it never came to PlayStation, so I didn't play it.
I mean, this game looks absolutely beautiful, so if they can pull it off, as long as it's got a good gameplay loop in there, I think they might have a winner here.
I agree. I tell you how they're going to do that, Richie, though. Next story of the week, they're going to use development tools provided by Google Stadia, because we had an article drop on February 9th, a blog post article, over on the Stadia.dev website, saying that they are keeping and updating the ability to develop and play anywhere. They put out a post. Basically, in summary, they're updating the behind-the-scenes test clients that allows developers to put out different versions of the game in different modes and states. That allows them to check how people move from different endpoints, so whether you're playing on a mobile, a tablet, a PC, Chromecast, switching between those to bring the best experience, how the overlay might look, how the player will react between transferring from device to device. And the reality is they're just doubling down on a number of different benefits that allows developers to configure their game better, create better launch options, and tweak the settings for future modes in the test hub environment, which was showcased, I think, around last year's GDC, if I recall. This is where I always like to bring Tom in and let him talk about all the geeky behind-the-scenes stuff. What's your take on all this?
Better tools for developers is a good thing. I don't really have a bigger take than that, to be honest. But apart from Stadia is weird. Stadia seem to be more inclined to talk about improving the development tools going public than talking about what games are coming to the platform.
That's a great point. There's kind of twofold to take away from this for me, and the first one we discussed pre-show was if they're working behind the scenes for developer tools to make games we know take several years to produce and put out. So if they're talking about this actively now as we head into GDC, anyone out there who's still worried that Stadia might close down this year or stuff, I think it's safe to say it's not, because they're working with Microsoft tools here as well to get the games produced, and they wouldn't be doing that if stuff wasn't in the pipeline for this year, next year, the year beyond.
I think the strategy for Stadia is not what I want for the platform, but I don't think Stadia's not dead by any stretch of the imagination. It's just, I think this is they've now settled into for Stadia to be a slow burn rather than trying to get up. As long as people are on the platform, and there's enough money coming in to sustain the platform as is, that's where it is. And while the easier they make their development tools, so the easier it is for people to make games for Stadia and port games over, the more likely you're going to see games come to the platform. And hopefully it will just be this slow trickle where as they improve the tools, they improve the back end. Yeah, hopefully it'll grow. My worry is, though, that strategy may not work as people just slowly migrate away from the platform.
And this is, I think, the worry for you and me and a lot of our audience out there have had for some time, is that if they're pivoting towards a slow growth and a natural growth as the industry swells and gaming becomes... I mean, there's actually a story we're going to move on to in a moment that discusses the gaming industry in general above and beyond. It can be financially viable. It probably will grow with time. Now they've got the infrastructure. Yeah, why wouldn't they be able to do that? But as someone who's a gamer who's looking for my big AAA fix every other few months and my multiplayer fixes and online and everything like that, and maybe I'm just not the target demographic. And as someone who's passionate about gaming and the tech, but from a business lens, that I might not be their focus anymore.
Well, we know from last week's show that Stadia's focus now Google's focus is now more on Google Stream rather than Stadia. But they can't be fully decoupled because they literally use the same infrastructure. Which means that I think as long as Google Stream's going, Stadia will be existing in some way, shape or form, because why sunset it when you're literally having the servers turned on anyway?
And like I said, there's loads of stuff that's happening, and we'll weave this into the next story, because there was another developer blog which was actually posted earlier in the month that not many people picked up on. I think I saw our friend John Scar talk about it, saying, why is no one talking about this? To quote from another dev blogs, that's 2 dev blogs within the space of a week, which it feels like things are livening up back again. I know we had a quiet start to the year. Yeah. They got some criticism. I'm hoping this means it's good signs that they're going to communicate a bit clearer. And I'll read straight from the dev blog. Supporting our developers and publishing partners is a core goal for Stadia. Our keynote at the 2021 Google for Games Developer Summit outlined how we'd like to increase the return on investments. 2 of these incentive programs we announced at the summit are now available to help our current and future partners generate more revenue. Referring to the Stadia Pro incentive program, which was announced, where they're going to give a 70% cut of the monthly revenue back to participating partners with session days. For Pro, and then also the improved transactional revenue share stream, which meant it meant up to 85% of revenue up to 3 million was shared, so the developers got more of the revenue stream. And to take 2 quotes from Akapura Games and Outright Games, who are big supporters of the platform, I'll read again verbatim. This is from Akapura, we've launched 2 of our titles into the Stadia program recently, Grime and The Dark Side Detective. Despite being polar opposites in terms of content and genre, both performed well in terms of finances and player reception. Stadia Pro seems to benefit a wide variety of titles regardless of style or replayability. Stadia Pro has consistently exceeded our expectations on both payout and player engagement. We have an active, passionate community of players for our titles. Quite a ringing endorsement of the platform. And then to back that up with Outright Games, who've got a multitude of games now that have all dropped over the last 12 months. From the offset, Stadia Pro has felt like a natural fit for Outright Games and kids' video games in general. The accessibility of the platform, coupled with Stadia's increased commitment to distributing quality, age-appropriate video games to families, has allowed our titles to thrive in their ecosystem. We have seen a fantastic amount of engagement with our games on Stadia already, with revenue that went above our expectations. As we expand our portfolio, we will continue to bring more opportunities to play great children's games in the cloud. Thoughts?
Outright, I think are going to do well in Stadia, because we know a lot of people who are lapsed gamers who have now, like, dads or mothers and stuff, have got back into gaming because of Stadia. So something like Outright Games going, here's a load of games aimed at your young kids. That must be great for as a dad, as a way of engaging in your hobby with your child.
Yeah.
But if you put this and the previous story and last week's story about Stadia being deprioritised, I wonder at Google gearing up for a return to GDC to talk about Google Stream. Let's get the bad news of we're focusing more on Google Stream and depriorities and Stadia out the way. Get the angry comments and whatnot. The annoyed podcast hosts getting their say out there. And then so when we take to the stage at GDC, we've already kind of just got ahead. We've already taken the hits that we can focus on what we want to talk about. And with the developer stuff, adding that, I think Google could take the stage again to talk about Google Stream.
Yeah.
I hope if they do, they acknowledge Stadia though.
Yes.
They kind of got, yes, Stadia is still a thing. Still working on it. We're working these tools for both you to bring your games to Stadia as our consumer-focused platform, and to provide this business-focused platform for you to host your own games through your own service. Yeah,
there's some interesting points you said there about the parents with children, and you almost have like a sub-demographic. If your demographic's the older lapsed gamer, but then underneath that you've got their children who, by proxy, are part of this cycle as well. Two bits that stood out for me was both publishers and developers said expectations on payouts were exceeded. And Outright Games says that the revenue went above their expectations. So Pro is doing wonders for monetary standpoint, apparently.
We know that the split is based on time played. So that means people are playing these games, as much as sometimes Facebook groups like to complain about like just indie games or games aimed at children. It's like people are playing them.
Yeah, it's hard to tell.
Like he's proof. Outright Games earned more money from Stadia Pro than they were expecting.
Yeah, it's interesting because I know we can sometimes silo ourselves into a little bubble where we don't have children or we only like a specific game. And Destiny, us playing Destiny last week was a proven fact about that. Destiny has probably one of the higher constant player bases on the platform, and we never even streamed it because we're not into Destiny. But that doesn't mean players aren't out there. The report last week said also that as of 2020, Stadia's player base was about 750,000. We only like really interact with people in our communities. Probably up with this, like the Stadia Twitter social media community is probably only a few thousand at best. So there's still nearly a whole 500,000 people who don't engage and interact with this stuff. So that we probably just overlook because we're so passionate and talkative.
Probably 90% of gamers don't interact with get anything to do with the gaming industry outside of buying a games they're interested in and playing it.
Yeah, they don't give a shit.
And then we're the weird ones who not only are we digging through like the stories for fun, then we're making content around it.
Yeah, how sad. How sad are we?
Yeah, we would have been if we weren't making this show, we'd still be keeping up on the Stadia news anyway.
Yeah.
So it's just like we are the weird ones, and you're even weirder for watching it.
I'd say enthusiasts.
That's enthusiasts. That's a nice way of putting it. I'm using we in the terms that we're nowhere near the majority in terms of how we interact with games.
Yeah, with a vocal minority, we certainly are.
Yeah,
and that kind of brings us on to a few final pieces regarding all this story. Is that there was a Beyond 2020 Google Games with Google article that came out about they commissioned a company to do reviews on the last 18 months and basically go through what the global view was. And the new frontier of gaming. So if anyone thinks Google aren't committed to gaming, whether that's through Stadia or something, they 100% are. Reading from the Beyond 2021 review, 2020 saw global games market increase 23.1% year over year, the highest growth rate in more than a decade. For astute industry observers, this is a chance to reassess where gaming will go next. Globally, the industry is expected to reach 218.7 billion by 2024, passing the coveted 200 billion threshold in 2023. So huge growth in there. The article, go read it. It's games.withgoogle.com/reports, and it breaks down into like areas and countries and continents of growth where things like Latin America have surpassed 289 million, 6% rise year over year. North America, smaller rise, but Middle East and Africa, a 10% rise year over year. And obviously we all know the pandemic pushed gamers into their homes to spend more time playing, but we as fans and enthusiasts, Richie, we know this industry gets bigger every single year.
The weird thing is we kind of think we forget how big some demographics are. It's like the Middle East and Africa, apparently bigger gamers than Europe by Google's this report. Middle East and Africa, 434 million players. Europe, 409 million. I'm genuinely surprised by that.
I mean, if you take, it depends what they class as a gamer. If it's a mobile gamer, I guess everyone has a mobile phone nowadays, and population.
Well, yeah, I mean, what we should stress here is like this is a Google Games report, not a Stadia Games report.
Yeah, true.
Which means I think there's probably three big avenues to their gaming now. There's Stadia, the consumer-focused console equivalent platform. There's Google Stream, which is kind of the business focus. Hey, you can use our tech to do your own thing, and then there's Google Play, the mobile focused element of it.
Yeah. A couple of quotes to comment from the article as well. Marilena Lowe quotes saying, there are lots of ways that subscriptions can unlock content and engagement. The key is to provide ongoing value. And that kind of attests to our SideQuest episodes about this week, and it's the Stadia Pro proposition, and that we're now at 50 games claimable. And are they as Google, an entity, approaching gaming from... We've like criticised them so much for saying that they don't get gamers, they're not doing and like, I still agree, I still stand by all those things I've said, but they're looking at it from a statistical, analytical Google point of view, where they're seeing gaming grow year on year. They're seeing Google Games and Android and the Play Store do so well. Are they just doing it their own way based on figures, and they don't really care as long as they're making money?
I think they've looked at what they think the gaming industry could be, but I think the gaming industry can really be split into two. You've got the mobile gaming industry and the console PC gaming industry. I think these are separate marketplaces completely. I mean, people can interact with both of them, absolutely, but I don't think what it happened in mobile gaming works in console gaming and vice versa. I think they are two very separate industries, and you have, crucially, different people interacting with them. Like, as much of a big gamer as I am, I don't play any mobile games, and basically never have, because that's not what my phone is for. It doesn't fit into how I live my life. Like, on my breaks the only time I could really see myself playing a mobile game might be on my breaks at work. But I'll get half an hour for my lunch and I actually want to sit and eat something. So,
yeah. You old man.
Yeah.
But yeah, so to round out this and pivot, the news kept coming from, again, as we creep towards GDC, I really think we're going to hear more and more come out of Google Cloud and Stadia. And our much missed friend, Jack Buser, formerly of Google Stadia, actually penned another article over at cloud.google.com regarding the games industry trends of 2022. Millions more players, billions more streams. Is on 3rd of February, Director of Games Industry Solutions at Google Cloud. Now, remember, we covered it on the show many weeks back when Jack Buser moved from the Stadia team to Google Cloud. We said that would have been actually a great move for Stadia's future. Even though they lost Jack Buser as a member of the Stadia team, he was moving up to the hierarchy of Google Cloud in general. And if he knows the Stadia tech is good, and Jack has a good handle on the games industry, I'd like to say from his interviews that I've watched, it's a good position to have above to kind of help put your chess pieces in place. I kind of think
Jack Buser is potentially the head of Google Stream.
Potentially.
I think this, in hindsight, after the last article, I think this might be what that move was about.
Okay.
The separation of Stadia from Google Stream. So Phil Harrison is still head of Stadia. Jack Buser is now head of Google Stream.
Interesting.
And because they're four different things, like
definitely. You can't.
Obviously, there'll be interaction between them because they use the same servers and whatnot. But they are four different things. Like Google Stream, you're selling this to a business. Stadia, you're selling it to a gamer.
Yeah, definitely. So to give a couple of snippets from Jack Buser's article, again, go read it. It's an interesting read. He breaks down kind of similar stuff what the Google Games report covered. 2022 will hold many surprises. And then he says with a few already dropping, which is probably in relation to the Activision Blizzard buyout and Bungie. There's one near certainty that gaming is going to be bigger than ever before. They're no longer a niche hobby. It's global. It's mainstream entertainment. There were 3.1 billion gamers worldwide in 2022, and it's estimated that there's going to be another 500 million added this year. With a global population of 7.7 billion, that means nearly half the planet play games, which is huge. Games are forever getting better. He goes on to talk about board games that are like nearly 5,000 years old are still played to this day. I mean, just look at like chess and stuff. So it's not wrong that gaming has always been around. It always will be around. But hell, now you can monetize it, Richie, and give it to more people even easier. He mentioned that streaming is bigger than ever before, not only from a cloud gaming standpoint, but also a visual. More people are streaming, more people are making content, Twitch, YouTube gaming, all that kind of stuff. The rise of technology like augmented reality, VR, 5G, it's all getting bigger and better, and he kind of summarizes by just saying it is going to be a huge year for the games industry, and Google, as a premier provider of solutions, tools and services, and a games company is there to engineer and help that along as well. And it's all these little snippets of information that are why I really don't think Stadia are going to go anywhere. Whether it's the Stadia that we want it to be doesn't matter. Cloud gaming is in such its infancy. Why can't I say that now? I've said it hundreds of times before. Infancy. And the scale of the growth of the industry as a general, Google will be so foolish to just drop tools and give up now when it's worth so much money.
Yeah, I really can't see Google dropping tools on cloud gaming. I can, at some point, see them moving on from Google Stadia and going, you know what, this is our first attempt to get into this business. It didn't work out. Google Streams now working really, really well. Let's double down on that. But Google aren't going anywhere from the gaming. There's no way they would. They Google. I actually think Google is better classified not as a tech company but as a data company. So if there's a way they can get your data, they're going to be there. And gaming is definitely one of them.
Dating company, very fitting for Valentine's Day. And I think we've said that time and time again, and we have mentioned it on the show. But if you look forward, if Ubisoft Plus goes all cloud, they don't need Xbox and PlayStation to have a box. PC, you don't need it, it's all in the cloud. If EA Play went all in the cloud and EA start thinking, well, why do we give Sony a cut of our FIFA sales when you could just click a link on EA.com and play FIFA through a browser? And you said many times before that you don't think Xbox will have a console in the near future. It'll just be Game Pass and xCloud.
I think,
or a stick.
Yeah, I do. I'm still holding to that. That I think this might be the last Xboxes we get, unless if there's like mid-generation like refresh, which can happen. But I think that's probably what they're working to. It depends what happens over the next couple of years if cloud gaming takes off the way Google and Microsoft seem to think it is.
Yeah.
But if it's a slow burn, that you might get one more generation of Xboxes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is. Again, it may seem crazy to say it right now, but if all of these whatever third party publishers are left, and they realise that actually they don't need the middleman, which is the box, to do the work. Yeah. To cut the middleman out, and we'll just go direct. And if Google Stream or Amazon Luna or Xbox or whoever or whatever is doing it, if they realise that they can make more or the same money without the box, then cut them out. Like that, businesses do that all the time. They cut out the middleman and go do it themselves. Look at Google and the Pixel right now. They cut out the middleman. They've started putting their own chips in their phones for the Pixel. Because why go pay someone to make the chips for you when you can bring it in house and just keep all the costs?
Apple doing the same.
Yeah, they do with the screens.
Silicon is now a thing.
Yeah, they do with the displays as well. They cut out the Samsung OLED displays and they paid LG millions to bring it in house for them. So that's business, and it may seem far off. And I love my PS5 as much as the next guy, but just like I love my CD collection and my DVD collection as much as the next guy, and then they now don't exist. So I hate to say it because I'm a big collector, but I love to say it at the same time because I'm a tech enthusiast, Richie.
The next generation of people aren't going to be collectors in the same way that you are, because they're not gonna grow up where the norm was to go to a shop to buy a DVD if you wanted to watch it, or even that. We sat on VHS.
Yeah, exactly.
That's just not how people interact with movies anymore, and I think it's the same with games. Like, people don't interact. I don't think a lot of people growing up now would probably find it weird to go buy a disc off go into a shop, pick a disc off a shelf and put it in the things. Like, no, just download, you just go in the store, bang, click, it's there, and it's there.
The future is all about convenience. Just look at Just Eat, Deliveroo, all those companies as well. Amazon Prime have made billions off of just convenience of bringing stuff to your door. So yes, cloud gaming is all about convenience. It brings it to your door without spending hundreds of pounds on a box, without needing to upgrade your tech. It's just right there on the stuff you already own.
Yeah.
Boom. That's how it's done, Richie. Great conversation. Yep. Speaking of great conversations and great things that might be coming, Grid, within the game of Grid, of course, been on Stadia since launch. Apparently, it's now teasing within the game the pre-orders for Grid Legends, which hasn't been confirmed for Stadia. Just a short one for this, Richie. Do you think Grid Legends, now formerly Codemasters, now Codemasters EA, it's due out in probably this week, actually? Is it February 15th? My mind's telling me. imminently. Do you think it's going to come to Stadia? Is there going to be a last minute pivot and want to get the next Grid game, or is this dead in the water?
No, I think it's dead in the water. I think this is just games sometimes advertise the newest game in the series within the game, and they just push to all platforms.
You let me down.
I think, unfortunately, I do think that's what this is.
I would agree.
It may have even been removed by the time you're listening to this.
Yeah, I think they'll just leave it in. I don't think they care.
Yeah, probably because they're still advertising their games. Like,
yeah. Grid Legends looks super fun. We enjoy Grid, what we play on the platform. Again, it just goes back to that unfortunate stigmatism that comes with it now, that these second entry sequelized franchises are not coming, and we can't. I don't think the future. I don't think that's how Stadia position themselves now. They've had a few years to go at it. And
the reality is they probably don't sell enough for the developers to want to do it naturally.
Yeah.
And which means Google have to throw a bag of cash at them, and Google don't want to throw bags of cash at them.
Yeah. They'd rather go to businesses and ship it out. So, Grid Legends due out imminently. Go play it elsewhere if that's the case. We'll hear more about that, I'm sure, imminently. Fingers crossed. You never know, Richie. They could surprise us. We could get a Connect next week, or a blog post next week that goes, surprise, here's Grid Legends on Pro for free. Nah. We stress.
Day one on Pro, that'd be impressive.
I know, it would be impressive. Hey, we've got a few games day one on Pro. Little nightmares.
True.
Too. So you never know. You never know where that bag of cash lands. Another title. It's not Stadia related, but I wanted to bring it up because I'm a big fan of the franchise, and we've mentioned it many times on the show before. TellTale Games. They're back. They're rejuvenated, bought out, purchased, rebranded. The Wolf Among Us 2. The Wolf Among Us is actually one of my favourite TellTale series that I've played. And it got a trailer, long awaited. It's the return of TellTale. We jump back in with Bigby Wolf as he explores Fairy Tale Town, for what it's called, with new characters. It tells essentially a dark story with fairy tale characters and creatures. It's got like a bit of a detective vibe to it. Really, really good if you've not checked it out. And the reason I wanted to bring it up is because we've said before on this program many, many times, TellTale Games are a perfect fit for Stadia with the direct touch input. It's a different kind of genre that's not really on the platform. I mean, we've got Life is Strange now, so it's dabbling, but they've got such a good back catalogue of games. I'd love to see them get a second life, like a resurgence on cloud.
I'm not sure they can. I think there'll probably be weird licensing stuff for some of their games that they'd have problems with now. But the new stuff, like, Wolf Among Us is actually a TellTale original, isn't it? So they should be okay with that.
Yeah, it's based on the Dark Horse comics, I believe. So it's not their IP, but the game is their design. It's not existing. Whereas, you're totally right. Part of TellTale's financial woes came from getting these big licenses like Jurassic Park, Back to the Future, Game of Thrones, and then not seeing the return. I think there was a graph that put out which actually showed year on year the return on investment was just less and less.
They spent all the money on IPs and not on developing their engine.
I mean, they were great. The two Batman seasons were fantastic. Minecraft story mode, I enjoyed that. That's actually playable on Netflix now, Richie. I saw it pop up on my TV last week.
Yeah. Tales from Borderlands.
Yeah,
really good.
Tales of Borderlands is fantastic. Give us some of the best cutscenes in the Borderlands world of all time. But yeah, Wolf Among Us, if you've not played it before, highly recommend it. We don't really know what TellTale's relationship is with Google, so I'm always in high hopes that Google could reach out to them and say, hey, new cloud platform, want to check us out? You've not worked with us yet. Maybe try out bringing Walking Dead Season 1 over to us, and then we'll go from there. It is in partnership with WB Games, Richie, so...
Yeah.
We've done a whole SideQuest episode about WB Games and why Stadia need to lock them down for 2022, because Gotham Knights, Batman, Harry Potter, Lego, now Wolf Among Us Publishing. If they could land that plane, that's 5 stellar titles you're going to get this year, and at the moment we don't know what to expect, so we'll see. But I want to bring it up because I like the games, I like the franchise, and I do feel TellTale will find a good place in the cloud, so we'll see. Yeah. Final few stories for this week's show, ladies and gentlemen. Jade Raymond, of course, previously of the Stadia team. It's been a year since her leaving was kind of announced. She's over with her Haven studio, telling us in a report this week that they've tripled in size. The studio's tripled in size. and Jade is working on a PlayStation title now. We know Haven signed a deal exclusively with Sony to grow the studio and grow the position. I just kind of wanted to touch in because they've got a little bit more information about that she's making a persistent and evolving online title. I'm just curious if you think this might be the game we should have got on Stadia or otherwise.
I think there'll probably be elements of the game that we would have gotten Stadia in it, but I think that game that she was working on was probably very early in its development. That this game, I don't think if you actually complete that game and put this game side by side, you'd be able to go, oh my god, this is the same thing. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's
interesting. Apparently, and I quote, they're going to push the technical capabilities of the PS5 further, and as such, they're going to be collaborating with the PS5 architect and legend Mark Cerny to better exploit the console's tech. So maybe what they were working on at Stadia is pushing the PS5 to its absolute limits, but it's one we'll keep an eye on because I'm always interested in PlayStation first party. I'm always interested, especially now, to see what the foundations that was set up from Jade and the team at Stadia. Because remember, Google were nice enough to let her take all of her work with her. Anything that they had developed was her to take. It was there to take. So interesting thing. One day we're going to sit down. We're going to play a game that might have came out on Stadia exclusive on our trusty PS5s, Richie. But that's so far away. And hopefully, the last story of the week, NFTs are also so far away as well. We've got a few stories relating to Bandai Namco are apparently building a 96 million interconnected IP metaverse featuring NFTs as being the kind of focal point, as are the PUBG company Krafton. They're also getting into NFTs. There was an article that came out this week that says, they've clearly not read the room. They don't understand everyone who's backtracking and getting
but
shit.
You don't
all
understand
over.
NFTs. Games don't understand NFTs.
Ubisoft boss is saying gamers don't understand the benefit they bring. They're apparently using it to experience PUBG related content in a highly virtual world using Unreal Engine. I'm not going to spend time on that's pretty much it. The biggest thing I took away from these two articles, Richie, was actually that Bandai Namco have refreshed the logo again. Do you know the bright pink neon around the logo and like a little speech bubble? It's now a shade of red. That's about it. That's my biggest takeaway.
Okay, yeah.
I've got no
My
time.
biggest takeaway is that they acknowledging the existence of the metaverse, which just needs to die.
Yeah, NFTs and metaverse can just...
Yeah. You know what the metaverse is? It's Habbo Hotel.
Oh.
Effectively. It's just a better version of something like that.
Oh.
If you look at Facebook's announcement of the metaverse, it's basically a chat room.
I mean, you're not far off. But
with a cringy name.
The metaverse. There'll be a movie about it, no doubt. But, ladies and gentlemen, that is all we have time for you this week on episode 125 of the Sounds of Stadia podcast. As always, thank you for watching, tuning in, listening, however you get our content out there. And don't forget, if you hit join below on the link, join our channel, become a member, become a Helix hero, in fact, like many of you wonderful people do. Special shout out this week to Mark Sally, who's joined us on the channel as well. He's became a Helix hero. He gets access to SideQuest up to 6 days early, special badges and stickers down there in the chat. Thank you, Mark Sally, for supporting us there a little bit further, and all of the 50 plus folks who do out there on YouTube and still on Patreon. Some of you, if you are listening to this and you still have a Patreon, we don't really use it anymore, so you may as well move over to YouTube. It's much more engaging. We can get the content out better, and it keeps it all in one tidy place. We don't want to be fracturing and splitting our lovely audience up out there. This week we will, of course, this very Thursday, be jumping back into another Stadia live stream, 8 p.m. UK time, GMT. GMT for a little while longer. It's March, isn't it, when the clocks go forward?
Yeah.
We got a few weeks of GMT left before we switch over to summertime. That's been it for me. My name's been Chris.
And I've been Richie.
We've been Helix Cloud Games. Thanks for watching, everybody. And remember, play whatever makes you the happiest. Have a great week. Goodbye.
Bye.